Guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
First one is titled Entitled Relatives Think They Deserve More Than My Adopted Son. To give some context here, I must say that I'm an IT engineer with toxic family relationships. I did cut off my father and my uncles and aunts, yet I keep in contact with my cousins and their children, which somehow I treat as mine, as I had none and I'm an only child, therefore is the closest I got. I always prioritize success over relationships, so I'm single. And through the years, I felt that my cousins' children weren't mine, therefore I wanted to raise one of my own. It took me some time, but finally, I adopted an 8-year-old kid, as those usually age out of foster care. I love the experience of raising a kid, yet I have had to deal with some entitledness from my cousins. It turns out that every now and then I usually spend some money traveling with my cousins and their children. Yet this year, for obvious reasons, I need to save money in order to get all of the stuff my son would need, and I'm planning on going big, the best of the best I could afford. I just explained this to my cousins and told them this year our trip together will be canceled. They said nothing, so I thought they understood the whole situation. Anyway, I wanted my kid to socialize with my cousin's children, so I invite them all to a get-together party after about 2 months, when my son felt comfortable enough, and somehow all of the kids were so mad and refused to play with my kid. He just sat in a corner and tried to not cry, but he did. I just talked with the kids, and they said he was not part of the family and they deserved more, as he is adopted, and they, as my family, were entitled to the trip to the parks in Florida. I was in shock and asked them where they got that from, and they told me how their parents have told them the reason why I took their trip was my son, who comes from the streets and isn't even family. I was fuming, so I told them all to leave. I had a Zoom meeting with just my cousins who tell me that their children must come first, and I told them they made me realize my son come first. So I canceled their college funds, their private school tuitions, and just told them that if my kid is not part of their family, neither am I, and they were cut off. I have been called unreasonable, but I think my son comes first and I made the right decision. Next one is titled My Mom Died. My aunt became a massively entitled monster. Last week, my semi-estranged mom finally succumbed to cancer and died while I was still midair on my way to see her. I am a Canadian citizen. My mother lived in a different country. Readers, please note that owing to COVID restrictions, entering the country my mom died in, and where my extended family lives, is damn near impossible. Getting in even now, under recently relaxed restrictions, cost me thousands of dollars and many hours of begging different government agencies to be allowed in. Literal cajoling. My phone bill is astronomical because of the amount of phone calls I had to make to foreign numbers. I'd even begged the Canadian embassy to step in. I missed my mom by 3 hours. Admittedly, we barely had a relationship in her final days. My mother was deeply narcissistic. She was physically, mentally, and frankly, sexually abusive during the years I spent living under her roof. My dad left her for those reasons. Mind you, we might have been semi-estranged, and I didn't like her, but I still love my mother, and it hurt that I didn't get to say goodbye. I'm glad she's out of pain, however. Anyway, this is where everything got worse due to my Karen of an aunt. I'm just going to call her Karen. I called Karen as I left the airport to get details of what had to happen next regarding my mom's final wishes on how to handle her death. My mom wanted a cremation and she wanted her ashes scattered. No wake. She wanted a small private memorial in her favorite park. That was it. Karen told me what she did instead. She had already set up a 4-day wake, inviting people from 3 different churches who never even met my mom. She had my mother displayed publicly in her coffin, surrounded by obnoxious displays of flowers and satin hangings. She had Christian music blaring. I have to admit, I didn't behave well at this point. I was still reeling in shock from the fact that my mom was gone. I hadn't slept in 24 hours and counting. I yelled at Karen and reminded her of my mom's final wishes. She said she didn't know, lie. I apologized quickly because I realized I was being insensitive. Karen had just lost her sister after all. Karen understandably ended the call, and I couldn't blame her. Anyway, I started getting texts from my cousin, Karen's daughter, telling me how I'm the worst for making her mom feel bad. Basically, completely telling me what an a-hole I was. I love my cousin. I held her when she was a baby and adored the crap out of her. Obviously, I was shocked and disappointed by her vitriol. Then, I get the text that really showed me how awful Karen was. Karen was masquerading as her daughter over text. My cousin never said a single nasty thing. It was all ducking Karen. She said she did it to get through to me. Then she starts asking if she could have my mom's jewelry. No crap. This was all within 6 hours of my mom's death. I told her I want my grandmother to keep my mom's jewelry. Whenever I kept the peace because honestly, my extended family was wrecked by my mom's death, and I didn't want to make my mom's death into more of a spectacle than it already was. I thank everyone including Karen for caring for my mother during her sickness and taking care of the funeral. Once the dust settled, I decided I would buy my family a nice dinner at a fancy restaurant. I thought it would be a nice distraction and a way to introduce pleasant life continuity, etc. My aunt threw a fit before dinner, basically refusing to go. I can't remember why, given my own mental state, but I know I refused to capitulate to her stupidity. It was something to do with my mother's estate. My dad had to coax her into coming with the rest of my folks and made me promise to be nice. She showed up. She ordered an appetizer, which fine, nothing wrong with that. She made some snarky comments about how I'm the VIP, so I should get to sit closer to my grandparents when they arrived. I kinda just let that go because, honestly, whatever. After dinner, she starts haranguing my dad and I about my mom's estate once again. I dragged my increasingly livid dad away from her because I didn't want to upset my grandparents. When I got back to my hotel room, I started getting texts again. Karen got sarcastic and mean, saying how nice it was for me to treat the family to luxuries they're not accustomed to, as they were so poor and needed a benefactor. She then proceeded to say she transferred money over for that one appetizer she ordered, which was like $8. At this point, I was emotionally drained and exhausted. She just kept on getting nastier and nastier in the text about how I'm a disappointment, etc., and how she should be the one handling my mom's estate and I'm doing it wrong. I'm starting to see at this point that this was about her wanting control. I literally begged her to stop being mean. Predictably, she did not. I made a decision and blocked her because I couldn't take it anymore. Karen proceeds to text my father instead. My dad got upset and told her that my mom's estate was designated to me, as that was what my mother wanted and Karen could go duck herself. Then he blocked her. She began trying to message him over other apps including Instagram. Blocked and blocked and blocked. A day later, someone started texting me from my cousin's number, Karen's daughter. Given her previous manipulations, I wasn't sure who I was actually speaking with. I simply ignored the sender, who was asking me if I would go to dinner at my aunt's to clear up all misunderstandings. Mind you, I had spent the entire day running around the city, getting legal crap sorted out, sending some of my mother's belongings back to my home address, etc. My aunt lived on the far side of the city. She expected me to simply travel an hour to go break bread with her, so she could probably insult me to my face. At this point, I think it finally clicked in Karen's brain that she'd crossed a line with me. My cousin starts texting me, saying how much her mom loved me like a second daughter, and she just wants to hug me. That's not all she did. She got my grandmother reaching out too. My grandmother refused to accept that I was deeply hurt by Karen's actions. She then spat out that I should have flown back to see my mother sooner. I lost it in my no yelling. I told her what it cost for me to come back. I told her how nobody seemed to care when my mom was alive, how she ducked me up so badly. I almost married my rapist simply because she wanted me to marry a nice Christian boy. She wanted me to get back with my rapist and abuser too, even knowing what he had done to me. I asked my grandmother why no one bothered to give a crap about what happened to me, that caused me to cut my mom out to begin with. My grandmother tried to say I misunderstood her. I told her I wasn't going to see her again until the day before I left the country. She called me oversensitive. Karen then starts texting me through her daughter's number, saying I'm breaking my grandparents' heart. As if I wasn't already ducking sitting alone in the hotel room, literally incapable of moving due to the emotional turmoil they both put me through. Fast forward to the final day of the trip. I went to see my grandparents one last time because I love them still no matter what. Karen showed up, fine. Whatever. I could be an adult. She sat down and told me she loved me and hoped we could go back to normal. I didn't bother replying in any affirmative way, though I wasn't rude about it. I didn't want to upset everyone else, and I didn't want to fight. True to form, She ends our final conversation wanting again to know about my mother's estate and the inheritance. There's not much more to this tale at this point. Not that there should be. I just feel sick at the fact that my family is so toxic and entitled, they couldn't even hold it together for my mother's death. Next one is titled Get Out of My Truck Lady. Not technically my story, but my brother's. So, I'm with my brother going shopping and we're talking about our week. He tells me about this crazy lady who hopped into his truck. He's my younger brother, but with me being disabled, I'm not sure I can drive with my mental ability. He works at a body shop. I wasn't there, so this is coming from him. Cast will be my brother, CL for Crazy Lady and the police. He tells me that CL is a homeless lady, and she walks up to him talking incoherently. He pays her no attention. He says he was about to inside when he notices she has gotten in his truck in the driver's seat. Guess he hadn't locked the door yet. Didn't ask? Not my business. He walks up to the truck and says, "Hey, get out of my truck." CL just sits there and says no. So he calls the police. She leaves before the police come but runs across the street. He told me he wasn't going to pull her out since it might turn ugly if he had. He even told me that she sounded drunk. The police caught her, and they did say she was indeed drunk. All I can say is wow. Crazy. Next one is titled Entitled Man Calls Police on Me for Stealing His Service Dog. To start off, I work as an animal control officer. This means impounding stray dogs, investigating alleged animal-related law violations, and writing tickets for said violations. I would say half of my calls I get are related to animals that have either gotten lost, dumped, or don't understand property lines. The other half is mixed with zoonotic disease control, like rabies, aggressive animals, and of course cruelty allegations. Few key points to this story. When we get a report of alleged animal cruelty, we collect information, look up the property owner to see any prior records, and then physically go out and check the property as a high-priority call. While I work 8 to 5, I am often on call where, if the sheriff's office need to, they can contact me for assistance. This is usually for an injured animal, an aggressive animal, or to pick up an animal where the owner cannot maintain custody, aka they were sent to jail or a hospital. Typically, if they feel it's not an emergency, they just write it up and email the report to me. Well, I got a call one day about a property we had previously been to for animals running loose, except this time the caller stated the animals were tied to chains without access to water or shelter. I collect what information I can then head out in the morning, where I see that the owner has made efforts to restrain the animals through use of chains. Done properly, this is not cruel and helps prevent the dogs from wandering off property. But I noticed that multiple animals did not have access to water or shelter. I tried knocking yet no one answered, so I decided to provide water to the animals I could access and then leave a notice to contact us. This is normal for cases where the animal isn't in immediate jeopardy and removing the animals would need a seizure warrant. The rest of the day was rather uneventful and unusually resulted in no dogs coming back with me to the shelter. So then the point about me being on call comes up. I get a few phone calls, but since they do not say sheriff's office, I do not answer them. This is pretty usual, as if it's an emergency the sheriff's office are called, not me. Some time passes and the phone rings again, except this time it says sheriff's office. Already feeling this probably isn't going to be a fun call, I answer, and the call goes along the lines of this. Me hello, this is original poster with animal control. Dispatch, hey there's a guy on the line that says his dog was kidnapped. Me okay, does the caller know who kidnapped the dog? Dispatch, yeah, he says it was animal control. Is it alright if we put you through with him? Me sure, that's fine. Brief pause as they patch me through with the man. Dispatch, okay, entitled caller, we patched you through with original poster in animal control. Me hello sir, how can I help you? Entitled caller, with a woman in the background also screaming at him. Yeah, one of your officers came by today, and they kidnapped our dog for no reason, stating that water and shelter wasn't available, when there was no reason for them to take my dog that was on my property, and that dog is a service dog that needs to come back right now. Me okay sir, and you're in area name here. Entitled caller, yeah, we tried calling but no one answered. Me alright, well that would have been me that went by your house today, but we didn't take any animals from your house sir. Can you describe what the dog looks like? Entitled caller talks to woman in background a bit, then says, well then, where the duck is our dog? And why are you leaving this paper here? All of our animals are very well taken care of. He's white and tan and very well cared for. Clearly someone must have taken our dog, because he ain't here. Note, after getting the description, I realized I saw the dog unrestrained on the property. Me, sir, I did see your dog earlier, but I know I didn't take your dog because I didn't impound any animals today. And I am the only officer that was on duty. I'm sorry that I don't know where your dog is, but I'll be by tomorrow morning to speak with you about the notice I left today, all right? Entitled caller, more talking in background than fine. But I better get my dog back, he's a service animal. Finally, I'm able to hang up, and then I see I have a voicemail left about 10 minutes ago, 5 minutes before the sheriff's office called. What I hear shocks me. This is the exact voicemail. Entitled caller, you need to call me as soon as possible. That ain't the only dog that runs loose, and he don't spend outside overnight, so he don't need shelter. He's an inside dog, and we watered him this morning. Now you call me back or we're calling the sheriff's office. You call on my property again, I'm arresting you for trespassing. In fact, I want you to call the sheriff's office. I want a deputy at my house in no later than 15 minutes. So the following morning I do my usual routine with paperwork, checking voicemails, and getting prepared with a lot of coffee. I start heading out but call the sheriff's office to send a deputy to the location since the entitled caller stated he would arrest me if I was on his property. I get there, see the deputy, and inform him of the situation. After letting him listen to the voicemail, I still remember cracking up as the exact words he said were, "He sounds like a douchebag." When I went to the door, the wife answered and a son came out to also talk to me. They explained that it turned out the service dog was under the porch the entire time. I informed them of what changes needed to be made for the dogs under their care. I never saw the entitled caller, and everyone was extremely polite with the deputy there. After it was all talked out, I thanked the kind deputy for keeping things civil just by being there and went about my day as normal. I would return many times to that house to follow up on changes they made, which were fine as far as they rehomed most of the dogs. I've never seen the porch dog in a service vest and don't expect to. I still am yet to be arrested for trespassing. Next one is entitled Shopping Center Beggar. So, I'd like to hear anyone's opinion on this. Yesterday afternoon, I was on my lunch break at work, walking down to the pizza restaurant in the same mall. Some frail-looking woman stops me and asks me if I can be so kind to buy groceries for her. So, I told her I didn't have the money, which is true. I only brought enough for the pizza and something I needed to buy at my store. So, I walked away from her and went into the restaurant. Then, as I was leaving the restaurant, I saw her again outside and she gave me this dirty look. So, I walked away fast into another store to kill some remaining time on my lunch. Now, heading back to my store, I saw her again sitting with a friend or whoever she was, and I see her friend point at me and say to her, "Is that the guy?" As if it's somehow my fault that she can't buy food. So, I walked as fast as possible back at my store and thankfully, that was the end of that. So, was I jerk in this situation, or do you think I stopped her from scamming me? Next one is titled Band Managers. Not as important as they think they are. This story takes place this week. I am an electrical engineer. I do a lot of work in quite a large venue and nightclub. You could say I'm part of the fixtures and fittings. I have a great relationship with all the staff and crew, and that's probably all you need to know to set the scene. So on this particular day, I've been working on one of the largest bars in the venue. I just replaced some emergency lighting fixtures and had boxed up the old ones so I could take them to the skip. It was getting towards the end of the day, and that evening's bands for the live gig had arrived and were in one of the smaller rooms preparing for their gig. My route to the skip took me through this room, and I headed out with the box of rubbish. On my way back up to the bar I was working on, I passed back through the band room. I knew the drink chillers were turned on for this bar, so I reached over the bar, grabbed the pump, and poured myself a half of Diet Pop, soda to you in the US. I am allowed to do this. I don't drink much, but at the end of the day I was getting thirsty. I was rather dirty and scruffy looking due to the dirty work I was doing. It was at this point I overheard the manager of one of the supporting bands pipe up and say, "He's not wearing a wristband. Why is he in here? Why can't he just take a drink?" The venue's crew manager retorted, "Because he's our electrician and good electricians are harder to find than support bands." The burn could be felt from the next city. Last one is titled Woman Nearly Rides Off My Car and I Get the Abuse. Today I had picked up my boyfriend and was driving home. I was on the main road going through our estate and a woman suddenly pulls out in front of me from one of the side streets. I will add she wasn't indicating or looking. Thank God I saw her just in time. I have to slam on my brakes. So hard my tires screech. I'm honestly surprised I didn't leave tire marks on the road. It was a close call, but luckily we didn't collide. I'd stopped basically in front of her car from braking so hard. I then leaned over, windows were open, and said, "I think you owe me an apology." She started shouting abuse at me, telling me to get the duck out the way and swearing, saying it was all my fault, and ended up driving around me and speeding off. I can't believe I got abuse when she was in the wrong. This has honestly scared me a bit. It happened 5 hours ago, I'm still freaking out about it. She also had about a 10-year-old child sat in the front seat. Thanks for listening.